love in your heart and hold your head high. Harbor no hate.
Welcome to the Let That Go show with Kassira McKee and Richard Skipper. This show is based on Kassira's book, Let That Go, where she guides people in completely blessing and releasing people, places, and all kinds of things. Kassira and Richard share personal insights and experiences based on concepts in Kassira's book, with guests and you, their co-hosts. Are you ready to let that go? Let's go.
Hello, Kassira.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
Hello, Richard.
Hello. Welcome.
Are you here for one of my tea light suppers?
Yes, I am. I want to tell you, first of all, it is Binge Sunday. That means you can binge on a great dinner. You can binge on a great series. You can binge on these shows. We have a lot of them behind us, and we have a lot, hopefully, ahead of us. I have been binging on this series called Gaslit. Have you seen it?
I just ran across it today. I have not seen it.
I'm obsessed with it.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Danny and I sat down the other night. We started watching it, and of course, it's about Watergate, but it really focuses on Martha Mitchell, who I loved.
Okay.
When she was out there, calling newspaper people all during the night and everything, she was lonely, and she was telling secrets to everybody. And I mean, she would call reporters, people that had interviewed her, and she would just reveal the most private things that she had overheard her husband, and people say. So, but I recommend it to everybody, and it's just so much fun.
Nice.
And then last night, on NBC, they showed one of the old episodes of Saturday Night Live, and I started to watch it, and something really hit me hard last night as I was watching this. Because I watched the series Impeachment a few months ago about Monica Lewinsky. And they showed the episode last night in which they were making fun of Linda Tripp. And it was cruel. It was absolutely cruel.
I think I remember. I watched a lot of Saturday Night Live, and I don't remember that one.
John Goodman was playing Linda Tripp.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And they kept saying, how does it feel to be the most hated woman in America? How does it? And making fun about it. And although I didn't approve of what she did and how she hurt so many people, but I just felt the way they betrayed her and the way that they treated her was cruel. I mean, there's a difference between satire and being cruel.
Okay.
So those are my thoughts for the night. So
okay, bye.
But Doug McAllister is here. I thought he was going to be.
I thought you were going to be backstage with this, Doug. Okay, it's okay.
But anyway, I am so excited about tonight's topic for a lot of reasons. And I'm sure just before I went on to Instagram and did a little plug for tonight's show, because so many of us go through where we have to have the last word. And, especially with social media, has really brought that out with people. My dear friend Russ Woolley is here, and he says mean is mean, and I agree with him. But there comes a point where, I have reached a point in my life where, as you've heard the expression, pick your battles. And some things are just not worth getting down in the weeds about. You wonder, in a year or so, is this really going to matter? That we are getting so obsessed over certain, in most cases, minute details. If we just take the time to step back and realize that having the last word is not always the most important way about going about things. And of course, you wrote the book. This is the topic that you chose for tonight. I'd like to get your take, and then we'll jump right in.
Well, I've already mentioned the fact that I live in the medical. I feel like I live in it. I work in the medical field, And people, it seems lately, are angrier and angrier. Patients are angrier and angrier, and more frustrated. And they have a tendency. People who are angry and frustrated, who are demanding to get something or are not able to legally get something they fiercely desire, take it out on other people. They got to find somebody to blame, and we've got a lot of that going on the planet.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that instant gratification.
Yeah.
We live in a world where you have to get an answer or a response immediately, or people feel that you have
Yeah.
dissed them, or
Mhm.
that you and
We're just being mean and not giving them what they desire, which is not true.
which is not true.
We'll give it to you if we legally can. We'll give it to you if we legally can.
And you know that in Paris, in France, they have in some companies, they have made it so that once 5 o'clock rolls around,
Mhm.
that emails are off limits. Bosses cannot get in touch with employees, and vice
Nice.
versa. And
Nice.
I think it's a nice gesture. And sometimes I just wish that cell phones would just automatically go off. And it's
Shut off. Well, in the big picture of things right now, where we are right now on the planet, it's really important that people figure out a way to get a hold of themselves. We've got so many people in conflict in our planet that are addicted to being right. Their
Mhm.
side is right, the other side is wrong, and that's it. When both sides feel that way, we get into dangerous waters. Uh, but it starts with us. It starts at home. It starts with us, and it starts with the people around us. Uh, I, I know someone who has admittedly said, she has said, I admit that I take things way too personally. And sometimes she just gets upset about something. And I've had to talk her off the ledge more than once, and have her very calmly speak to her and reason with her and talk her off the ledge, to get her to get to a point where we can actually just have a conversation, instead of it being her accusatory and me just sitting there fighting, defending myself. Often we human beings jump in like a lion in the den and don't give the other person a chance. It's just, we have a point and we're upset, and damn it, we're going to make it, and they're going to hear us and they're going to agree with us or else, instead of giving us a chance to have a conversation.
Now, does she do
Sometimes,
this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sometimes the other side doesn't take the time or patience to take a deep breath and attempt to have a conversation, and jumps into the den. It's a tiger and a lion in the den. And it's all about, as I write in the book, it's all about mindfulness. It's all about mindfulness. Being mindful in the moment. Does an attack hurt? Yes, it does. It has a tendency, we allow our feelings to get hurt. The other person desires us to take it personally. It's shot at us, but many times it's not personal at all. It's just how they feel.
I want
Yeah.
to bring on a comment, and so if you want to address this, and this is from Sherry Callahan in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hi, Sherry. Thanks for being here tonight. So if you want to comment on this, do you want to read it out loud, or do you want me to read it
No,
out loud?
no, you can if you like.
Okay, I must have the last word when my work as an astrologer and extreme weather specialist is mocked. I haven't been doing this for 30 years to be questioned. Not interested, go away. Do not challenge me.
Okay.
Okay, you just
That's
say.
it. Well, that's how she feels. That's how she feels. I'm
Okay.
not going to argue with that.
Okay.
I'm not arguing with that.
But
We choose what we choose. We choose it. We choose it. Now, I'm talking about in a battle of a conversation, not necessarily in. I'm sure doctors feel like when their patients argue with them about a diagnosis. How do you think they feel? You have cancer. No, I don't. Well, yeah, you do. No, I don't. Or you've got diabetes. You got to change your diet. No, I don't.
You just reminded me, Danny had these friends, one, this guy was a college roommate and he married this woman years ago, and she knew more about every subject than anybody else. She wasn't in theater, but she knew more about theater and acting than I could possibly ever know in 5
Mhm.
lifetimes.
Mhm.
She's not a landscape architect, but she knew more about landscape architecture than Danny would ever know in 5
Okay.
lifetimes. And no matter what topic came up or something, and it was almost a one-upmanship. And you know that type as well. You mention a name or something, someone has to give a better example of an
Mhm.
experience with that person, or a closeness with that person, or an experience with that person. But when it comes to a lot of what I do, I want to be the best that I can possibly be.
Mhm.
And I'm always striving to be the best that I can possibly be. And I know, because I'm going to be 62 in February. I've been
You
on this
go.
I've been on this planet, and I wear it proudly. I love every year that I've lived on this planet. I love the aging process, believe it or not. But my
Mhm.
body hasn't started to break down yet either. So it might be easy for me to say at this point. But as I get older, I realize also that you and I both came through the 80s. A lot
Mhm.
of my peers didn't have the luxury that I have now. And so I don't take any of this for granted. I
Right.
celebrate, as you know, each and every day. Uh, that being said, I know what works for me. I know uh, what I've accomplished in my life. I know what my strong points are, and I know what my weak points are. And if I am in a situation as an entertainer, as an artist, with the
Mhm.
work that I do, there are critics, who will come along and they want to criticize, or they want to tear me down, or as Sherry just said, mock you, whatever that is. And I love the fact that you said, okay, I'm not going to argue with that.
Mm-mm.
Uh, Let it go.
Yeah. You know, but as far as I know many of us had known instigators, people who instigated. I work with somebody that instigates negativity, that instigates uh, conflict. I think it's how she entertains herself.
Hmm.
Uh, and higher ups are aware. Um, Sometimes people are just so bored, or I believe, lack such stimulation in their own lives that they don't seem to they don't create for themselves, that they do this as entertainment, and they do it to get up. They do it as for stimulation. It stimulates them to argue and stir up trouble, to stir the stew.
But there are also people who go through life who are, Debbie Downers, who don't.
Wah wah.
Wah,
Yes.
wah.
I know some. There's one in particular. A friend of mine in Dallas, and I just discussed her the other day, and he brought her up. But yeah, she's what I call a social media bleeder. Yeah.
No matter
She,
what the topic is or something, they want to bring it down.
mhm.
But I'm a cockeyed optimist. I'm always looking for the other side. And yesterday was a terrible day for me. It was one of those days. Danny and I ended up having a fight yesterday. Yes, we had a big argument.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was not pleasant.
Well,
And
that happens.
God bless him. He puts up with me. And our plans for the whole evening and everything just went completely out the window. And it wasn't a matter of either one of us having the last word. We just went like this, and neither one of us had the last word. Um,
Hmm.
but because but we both knew that we were both hot-headed at a particular moment, and we just separated which was the best thing for us to do at that
Oh,
moment.
that is often the best thing to do. Yeah.
Yes, because I know that, and I'll tell you an interesting story. And this was early on in our relationship.
Mhm.
I performed early on in my career for a brief moment as Judy Garland. There are pictures on the internet. You can look me up. But I was performing at a club in Boston called the Paradise Club.
Mhm.
And the guy who was my musical director, and I use the term loosely when I say that, had a drinking had a
Wait, wait,
drinking
you can't just jump over that. Why do you use that term loosely?
because there were all kinds of he was this other guy that I was performing with brought him into the show. He
Yeah,
was
keep it
not
bright.
really somebody that I would have ever hired as a musical
Right.
director,
Okay.
but he had a drinking problem,
Uh-oh.
unfortunately, and I had to go into every bar and club that we performed in, and go to the bartender and say, "Please do not serve him any drinks until after the show. Because if you do, it's going to be problematic."
Mhm.
And this one particular night, and again, this is early on in our relationship, this one particular night, I am sitting on the lip of the stage as Judy used to do, and I'm singing, and
Mhm.
the audience is howling. And I turn around, and he was drinking Jack Daniels from the bottle
Oh, good Lord.
on the stage. And I walked off the
Mm.
stage. I was fit to be tied. So I'm sitting in the dressing room, taking my makeup off. And Danny, trying to be the diplomat that he is, I hear him say outside the door, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." And that set me off. And it was like, no, everything will not be fine. How dare this person do this? And how dare you say it was okay that he did this? And this was one of those instances where I had to have the last word. And no matter how many times Danny tried to apologize, this poor guy, it's a wonder that we're still together, because that night I was a banshee on wheels. And so we go back to the place where we're staying. I went up to bed. He stays downstairs because he's petrified to come upstairs. And then when he finally did come upstairs,
Yeah.
it was like that scene from Fiddler on the Roof. I bolted up in bed, said, "How dare you?" He said, "You're not asleep." I had been sitting there waiting, stewing all night. And we laughed about it afterwards, but oh my God,
It's good you laughed about it.
we laughed about it. But again, I've reached a point where I'm able to do this, where I say, when it gets to the point where it's a contentious moment, okay, what would you like the outcome to be? And then I allow that person to tell me what they want the outcome to be. And I really process it in my head. Is it really going to kill me to let go?
Yeah. I probably would say, if I were going to use that term, which I don't, but I would probably say, what is the outcome you're looking for?
That's
Why are
even
we having
better.
why are we having this conversation? What's the outcome you're looking for? Is it to be right and I'm wrong? Is that your outcome? Or would you like to have a conversation about this so we can come at this more amicably with a more positive vibe?
Well, let's
You know?
talk about this. There are different reasons why people feel that they have to have the last word. What do you
Oh, there's so
feel?
many reasons.
What do you think are the top three?
Well, addiction to being right, addiction to being in control. But when people do that, it's also because they feel unsafe. So the way to feel safe is to control the outcome. You will not only hear my side, you will agree with it, and if you don't, we're done. And I'm upset with you, and I'm coming at you because I don't want to have a conversation because I don't feel safe. It's typically a safety thing. If someone's determined, they've just decided in their head that someone deliberately did them wrong, uh, and they're just set out to deliver that message, do their best to get someone to feel bad about it, and win. There's no winning for either of you.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no winning. There is no winning. If one in an ideal situation, everybody wins. In some way, everybody wins. In negotiations, and in whatever situation, everyone wins. Somehow, everyone wins. Unfortunately, many people don't feel that way. It's win
Mm-hmm.
or lose for one person.
Well,
However, yes,
I
go ahead.
sometimes I think that people, if they've put a lot of time and effort into a project, for example,
Uh-huh.
and then the project doesn't, and then you may come along and say, well, this isn't exactly what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets them off. And then there's a conflict,
Yeah.
which is, again, what we're talking about tonight as well.
Woo,
God
excuse me.
bless you. Must be true. But some
Mhm.
people, I know people who procrastinate, and then things pile up on them. And their frustration with themselves gets manifested into taking it out on someone else. And that creates a conflict. And sometimes going that route will cause someone to feel that they have to have the last word on whatever the situation is. And it's not necessarily that they're having, the last, it's not, I don't think it's always as much about having the last word, but basically about being acknowledged for the time and effort that they put into a project.
Well, when you're talking about this other person, if the person has a pattern, why do we keep inviting that pattern in? One red, one red flag. Let's have a conversation. Another incident. We're on our way to, this is not working. How many opportunities do we give someone else? How many chances do we give someone else? How many chances do we give each of us together? It's the same in romantic relationships or friendships or work jobs.
Well, I can answer that for you. It's in a wonderful book called Let That Go. No, you talk about the stories that we keep telling over and over and over again. There are three things that just come out at me from your book. The fact that we repeat these stories because they're comfortable. I was talking to someone recently, and in the dynamics of this particular family, she has someone that every time this other person does something, these two conspire to talk about what this other person has done. So there's that example of, and then there's the quicksand.
Dissension in the group. There's dissension in the group.
The dissension in the group, and then there's the whole boomerang effect that you throw it out there, it's going to come right back at you.
Mm-hmm. I look at my own occasionally, like I have a very dear friend who I hadn't heard from in a while, and I started telling myself a story that she wasn't speaking to me anymore. Usually when people don't speak to me, it's because they're not speaking to me anymore. Yet, I do have really busy friends that I've had in my life. I've had a lot of friends in my life for 30, 40 years. We'll go by for a time and then catch up. And I thought, I wonder if everything's okay, And finally, when we talked on the phone, she said, "Oh no, my boss is working me to literally death. I'm exhausted." And we cleared it up. We had a conversation about it. I just said, "Are we okay? Is our friendship okay?" "Oh yeah, I'm just." So sometimes we just make these things up in our head.
Thank you.
And here's the thing: if I have an inkling that I may have said something that somebody took the wrong way, or if somebody has an issue with me, I want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Please just don't ghost me. Please don't ghost me. Don't ever not talk to me again. Let's talk about it, because it's important to my own evolution and my own karma to know what's going on. Did I say something? Did I do something? Did I not do something in a friendship? That's going to assist me in my own evolution to find out, and if it's something that I can work on myself, I'm certainly going to do it if I find it worth it. You know what I mean? If it's worth the relationship. Yet,
You just said the operative thing right there. If it's
yeah,
worth the relationship.
yeah.
And one
Sometimes,
thing that drives me really up the wall is when there's a conflict. I mean, you talk about having the last word, or do you have to have the last word? Then there are those who have no word at all. They refuse to talk about it. And they just go, I'm just not going to talk about this. And they
mhm,
completely cut you out of their lives, which has
mhm,
happened to me. So that's another issue altogether. But I at least want to get to the bottom of this. Two things happened today, as a matter of fact.
okay.
I got my newsletter, which, by the way, comes out tonight. Everyone, please
Yay.
sign up for it if you don't already get it. Um, and and a friend of mine had unsubscribed from it, and I reached out to her this morning, and I said, um, did it not live up to your expectations? Was there anything that I could have done differently to make it more readable or more exciting for you to get each week? I would just like to know, just so that I can make it better. And she said, no, it really isn't you. I've just reached a point where there are a lot of people that I'm cutting out of my life. And
Okay.
and I
Okay.
said, so I'm one of those people. And she
Mhm,
said, well, yes. And I
mhm,
said, okay, if I have not been a better friend, I apologize.
mhm.
And if the day happens where you feel that you do want me back in your life, the door's open. But I wish you nothing but happiness. And I let her go.
Yeah. Well, at least
And
she told you the truth. That wasn't so unpleasant.
it
I
wasn't
mean,
unpleasant.
it's brave enough. It was brave of her to say, "I feel like my expiration date with some of you has reached its point, and I'm done." And you go, "Okay, bye. Have good luck
Russ
with everything."
Woolley, if he's
It's
still here, he has a dear friend, and he said relationships are like milk cartons. An expiration date comes up with some of them,
mhm.
and it
And
happens.
then there's some of us who've had friends for years and years and years, and these people are soulmates. They're not going anywhere. I
Mhm.
really don't think they're going anywhere. I think I'm going to have these friends for the rest of my life. These other people, but we got it. We vibrate that way. We
Right.
we're we vibrate that way. We're on the same vibrational level. We what's the word I'm looking for? We just vibrate together really well. There's some
Mhm.
people that we just don't vibrate well together. They're not on our level of vibration, or we're not on theirs.
It's
It
interesting. I came to New York. I've mentioned this many times, but I came to New York when I was 18 years old, 1979. And that was August of 1979. And in February of 1980, I moved to the Bronx. And I lived there for the next 5 years. And
mhm,
I uh, got into this group that was it was just a community theater group, and I worked with them. Their real purpose was just to have a good time. That was the main goal with everyone. They rehearsed on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And after every rehearsal, they would all find themselves in a pub somewhere. Most of them were Irish, drinking away. Not that I'm saying that all Irish people drink away. But,
but come on,
no, but that was this group. And
right?
and I was 19 at that time, and until I was 21, and I moved away from that group. But they were this collective group like this. They did everything together. They took trips
Mhm,
together. When they went to the theater, they got group tickets to go to the theater. They went to
mhm,
restaurants together. That was their group. And I moved beyond that. And once in a while, over the past few years, um,
mhm.
with the passing of someone or whatever, I would go to a wake or a memorial service or something. And I have found as I've gotten older that I have absolutely nothing in common with them anymore.
Okay.
Okay. But
We sometimes evolve past each other. It's like the branches of a tree.
Mhm.
Our branches go this way and their branches go that way. Yeah, it's okay. Did you feel negatively about it, or did you feel
No,
bad about it,
no.
or
It
you
was
were
just
okay about it?
oh, I'm absolutely okay. But I
Mhm,
feel that I have grown, and I don't know. I know that you came from Dallas,
mhm,
but I grew up in a small town. And when you grow up in a small town,
mhm.
um, most of the people, someone is smoking outside my house somewhere, and my eyes and
Oh,
my
I can smell it a mile away. I'm
blow
with
it
you.
away.
Uh-huh.
But
I remember when I lived in Manhattan, I could smell someone smoking at the bus stop on the sidewalk.
but
Drove me crazy.
it's but when you grow up in a small town, uh, there's it's almost as if those people live in a bubble, and which is another reason why I say to so many people that are so rigid in their thinking, especially in our political world today, that you have to be open to where they come from and what they've been taught and what they believe, because it's a
Mhm.
whole different way of life from what you and I have. And a lot of people are not willing to go that extra mile to really get to know who
Mhm.
these people are.
Mhm. True, I guess.
Hmm.
But here's the other side of it. Because I talk to everybody. Is that other person willing to allow you to get to know them?
Sometimes.
Sometimes not. Sometimes they're really guarded. I've got a couple of people in my environment like that, where, no matter how much chit chat I make with them, I'm just not going to know them. They're not going to let me know them. They do not want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about anything that has to do with them. Being a Reiki master, I'm a very touchy feely person, not
Mhm.
inappropriately, because I have been a manager before in the corporate world. But I pat people, I pat them on the back, or say, hey, how are you? Or, oh, can I fix your necklace? Your necklaces, or can I fix your collar? I have a coworker that told me explicitly one day, do not touch me. I said, all right, okay. Do you not like to be touched? No, I do not. Okay, fine.
Well, it's a
We get
different
along.
world we live in.
We get along great. And it's fine. I don't have to touch you. But at least she, instead of going to somebody else and go, she keeps touching me. At least she said, don't touch me.
Oh, Kassira, you can touch me all you want. Touch, touch, touch,
And
touch, touch, touch me. No,
touch me. I want to feel dirty.
no.
Um,
I had a situation years ago. I was working for. There's an IBM conference center very close to where I live.
mhm,
It's no longer IBM, but it was, and I worked in the concierge desk for a brief moment, and one of my survival jobs, and it was raining cats and dogs one night. And so Danny, I don't drive. That full disclosure, I don't have a driver's license. I've
I was wondering.
never learned to drive. Now
I
you
have
all
been
know.
driving since I came out of the womb.
Yes.
So, okay,
So,
go ahead.
so rather than call Danny and ask him to come and pick me up in this monsoon of a storm that we were in the middle of, I
Uh-huh,
asked this young woman that I was working with if,
uh-huh.
and I knew that she drove past my house, if she would mind dropping me off.
Mhm.
And she said, well, let me get back to you on that, which I thought was odd, but I let it go. So she goes into the next room. She calls me from the next room. And she said, my boyfriend won't have it. And I said, well, let it be your decision and not his. That's all I said. I realize now, years later, that that was probably not the right thing to say. But at that moment, that's all I said was, let it be your decision, not his. Well, a week later, I go to work and I'm wanted in HR. human resources. And I go and I'm sitting there. I think I'm getting a raise. I really did. And I'm waiting for them to come. Well, I was a great worker, and everybody loved me there. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm going, what's going on? What's going on? And then finally, a psychologist comes in. And the psychologist wants to talk to me about inappropriate behavior on the work front. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said that I had crossed the lines with this particular employee and that she was now uncomfortable to be working with me.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, this may come as a huge surprise to all of you here, but I'm a gay man. And I am really sorry if I offended her in any way. And I told them what I said to her. And they said, well, it was an inappropriate thing to say. We're not taking this too seriously, but, just know that you are being, watched about this. And I said, I'm going to quit. I felt uncomfortable. I quit. I quit my job. I walked out and I just walked right out. They said, we don't want you to quit. I said, I'm here, but she's not.
Wait a minute. Let's drop back for a minute because this is juicy. So were you inappropriate in asking her for a ride? Or were you inappropriate to her by saying, let that be your decision?
I got too comfortable with her by saying, let that be your decision and not his.
That has nothing to do with work. I'm sorry.
I know.
Oh my God.
That was the situation.
Oh boy.
And I was, and I left. I said, I don't want to work for a company where I'm scrutinized for what I may or may not say to someone. And we now live in a world where you can be in someone's presence and you can say something and they can simply say, I'm sorry, but you made me uncomfortable. And they can get up and walk out of the room.
Well, we don't know what else was going on. Why would this girl run to her boyfriend and say, he wants me to take him home? There sounds like there was a controlling dynamic with her and the boyfriend.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know.
And it sounds like, I know. And he was the jealous type, and she couldn't wait to tell him so he could be jealous and get mad. There was a whole dynamic with her and the boyfriend that had nothing to do with you.
Well, I'm going to bring on a statement here because I think this needs to be addressed. Do you want to read it out loud or do you want me to read it?
Well, I've probably driven you more places than many people. I was never uncomfortable.
Well, there's still time, Russ.
I mean, that's just, that has too many layers to it. It can't be just, it had way too many layers to it. There was many layers to that little onion. Yes. It may have been a pearl onion, but that little onion had a lot of layers. It's a shame that we've gotten to this point, but still.
Well, let's talk Frank Langella for just a moment.
Frank
Langella was working on a movie set, and the young actress that he was working with said that he crossed the line. He's got a version of the story. She's got a version of the story. And people that worked on the set have a completely different version of the story.
I don't know what they said. I know what he said and I know what she said. I don't know what they said.
Well, he said that, according to Frank Langella, he patted her leg and said, well done, after an intimate scene. And she said, the scene is over. I feel uncomfortable with you touching me.
Okay.
And, but, a friend of mine who is, what's the phrase that they call them now, made a comment that there's a team of people that come in and address these issues.
Oh yes, you just read my mind. Okay, nowadays, thank goodness, there are people on a set that come in to make sex scenes comfortable.
Yes.
They make people leave the room.
Intimacy experts.
There was a
Intimacy
time when no one left the room, and like cameramen and ice bucket people and people that got you a cold towel were in the room. Everybody was allowed to stay in the room when you did these intimate sex scenes, naked or half naked. That was just wrong. It just was. And so, actors started speaking up about it, and now they do have people that come in to make the set comfortable for everyone to do an intimate scene. They kick people out. So only the necessary people are in that room. Not everybody and their grandma are in the room anymore. But also, if there are precautions that are taken for people that are in a sex scene together, to be certain parts to be covered, certain places you can touch, and the whole world's not watching you anymore. Now, if a person feels uncomfortable, they feel uncomfortable. And it's certainly okay. It's got to be okay for them to speak up. But all that needs to be said is, I hear you and I'm sorry. I hear you, I apologize, and it won't happen again. That's dialogue. That's dialogue.
But that's something that is missing a lot of times.
Yes. Who's this? Social Keys.
Alan. Just say Alan.
Okay, Alan. Yes. Intimacy coaches. Yes, and that's what they're called. Intimacy consultant. Yeah, that's what they're called.
So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's been in this business. He's done so many shows on Broadway. And he has a very prolific career. And he said nowadays you go, into a rehearsal room, and there are all these kids sitting around looking at their phones like this, not even making eye contact with each other, knowing each other. He said that he stopped one day and said to these kids, for God's sake, say hello when you walk into a room, or say goodbye when you leave the room, because they don't even have the protocol to do that anymore. Some of them think, you and I both, and you were, everyone, if you don't know, Kassira traveled, with Hello Dolly, with Carol Channing. I toured with a big 10-piece horn band. I played a lot of clubs. But it's all about, you travel, you are part of a company. It's a huge collective. You're interacting with people. I will tell you, you want a juicy story? I'm going to share with all of you one of the worst experiences I ever had as an actor. I was cast in a 2-person play many years ago. And we were doing a show that was specifically for high schools and a show that was specifically for grammar schools. One other actor and myself. We would show up at the school, take the set out of the van, set it up ourselves, do the show, and that was it. So we're rehearsing, getting ready to open, to go on the road for 6 weeks, that we're going to be touring all over New England. It was the New England Touring Traveling Theater Company. That's what it was called. So
that's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. So I will never.
Did you have like a hot air balloon? Because it sounds like you needed a hot air balloon and like a tent.
Well, when I describe what this experience was, the person that I was working with was like a hot air balloon. Because we were in the car going to our first gig, which was a tryout performance, and with the director. And mind you, all during the rehearsal process, there was the director, the costumer, all these people are always there. So as we're going there, I will never forget this. The director said, "What are your common threads?" And this guy said, "What do you mean, our common threads?" He said, "The things that you enjoy doing together, foods that you like to eat together, actors that you may enjoy going to see a movie together. You two are literally going to be together 24/7 for 6 weeks. Hopefully you're going to like each other." And he said, and I swear, I do not fraternize with people I'm working with. Okay. And the director said, it's just the two of you. It's not like you're with a big company or anything. He said, I don't socialize with people I'm working with. He said,
Okay.
it gets in the way of my character. So
Okay.
I thought, this is, a little strange since it's going to be the two of us. And you know me, I love to talk and so the first time we get in the car and I turn the radio on, he turns it off. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I demand quiet when I'm traveling."
Oh.
And I go, "Okay, this is strange." So they have us in a hotel room together, separate beds, but like twin beds. And I go in and I turn the TV on. And he goes over and he turns the TV off. And I go, "This is not going to work." So I went out and I went to the nearest payphone. We didn't have cell phones in those days, folks. And I called the director and I said, "I know I signed a contract, but there's no way that I'm going to be in this prison sentence. There's no way." And I described what I was dealing with. And I said, "You already heard him say that he did not fraternize. I turn the TV on, he turns it off. I turn the radio on. I can deal with that in the car. We have no choice. But there's no way that I'm not going to be able to watch TV at night. I just cannot sit there every night." And they put me in my own room, from that point on. He did not. We would go into a restaurant and he would sit at a separate table.
Mm-hmm.
He did not want to have anything at all to do with me whatsoever. And I got through the 6 weeks. Thank God the kids at the schools loved me and they were all over me, which I think also made him jealous. Truly. But when it was all over, when I got out of the car, I was, I don't know if you know where the McAlpin Hotel is. It used to be called the McAlpin, right next to the Empire State Building. That was where my apartment was. And I will never forget getting out of the car and saying, "This was the most miserable 6 weeks of my life." And I
Listen,
I had the last word.
I know one of my dear friends who is also a teacher is an executive. He's a lead therapist for the Four Seasons Spa conglomerate. He's worked at several Four Seasons over the years. He does not fraternize with anybody he works with on a personal level. Period. There are people in companies that they make friends on the job, yet they do not hang out with each other. Now, I do have friends in the medical job that I work, but I don't hang out with them. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said for that. Now, it keeps you out of trouble with each other because you never know if somebody's going to turn on you and say, "Oh, we were hanging out one night, we went to a club and we all blah, 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 and she was inappropriate or he was inappropriate," or, Yet when you're thrown together like that, there's got to be some sort of friendship that's got to conspire or some sort of, what do you call it, equal ground, or it's just downright uncomfortable.
Did you hear the brouhaha that went on last week about Trudeau in London in a hotel lobby? He was standing around with a group of people and they were all singing Queen. And it became a controversy because people felt that he was there for the Queen, the other Queen, and that it was inappropriate behavior.
And what are you talking about? What? I don't understand what you're talking about. What are they saying?
The
anthem, "God Bless the Queen"?
No, the group Queen. They were doing their music. Freddie Mercury.
What were they singing?
They were doing Bohemian Rhapsody in a hotel lobby.
What's wrong with that?
And people were up in arms with it, saying that because he was there for the Queen of England, that he should not have been doing this. And I heard this incredible radio program the other day, and they had people calling in. Everybody thought it was a much ado about nothing, that he was having a great time, and God bless him. He should have definitely been there having a great time. But I want to talk about something else before we wind down tonight. You and I have been in this business a long time. I have shared dressing rooms with male, female, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Everybody backstage in various forms of undress. You know, my first job in my first acting job, I did an off-Broadway production of Cinderella. The air conditioning went out in the theater. It was a multi-sex dressing room, and the girl who was playing the fairy godmother was completely naked when I walked into the dressing room. And I went, "Oh, I'm sorry." And she's, "Honey, get used to it." She's, "I have nothing you want." She said, "I am hot and I want to be comfortable. And if this makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry." And I said, "I'm fine." You know, it didn't bother me. But there are people, I mean, but people would make jokes. There was just this atmosphere that used to be backstage. And I do acknowledge and respect those
Everyone's boundaries.
where the boundaries have been crossed. But when there have been situations where everyone's having a great time and then someone goes and complains about it, that's a different story.
Yeah, well, they don't do that unless you're in a really tiny, cheap bus and truck, you know, with no room. I mean, everybody's separated now. You know, at Dallas Summer Musicals, at Fair Park Music Hall, productions are so huge now. You can't. Some of the cast is so huge. Like Phantom was a really good example. That upstage, past the scrims, is now converted into a portable dressing area for everyone. There are little walls that are rolled in to create private dressing rooms with curtains. Your costumes are right there. So everything is created. Of course, in a chorus situation, well, if it's in an equity, it depends on if it's equity or non-equity. There's a whole lot more rules associated with equity than non-equity. But in an equity situation, you will have people sharing dressing rooms, usually two at a time. Sometimes the girls' chorus will share together, and the boys' chorus will share together. If it's too large and people are playing other bit parts, you will have these little, I call them mini cities, that are built up stage behind the scrims, and you have to be really quiet during the show when you do this. So yeah, if it's a cheap show, or it's a small time show, sometimes you're just crammed together in a room. In high school, I had the lead in the show every year. Not a big deal. Then it was, but it's not a big deal now. Yet I remember in one show, I had to run off stage right and change just like that. And one of the boys in my class helped me change. He saw me in my bra and panties and tights. And everybody was like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Get over it." You know, and he didn't have a problem with it. I'll never forget him. I loved him. And he just helped me change. He said, "I'll help you change." I'm like, "Okay, great." You know, and he didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem. And everybody just accepted that that's what we would do. And we did it. And because I grew up, you know, I started in theater when I was 14, 13, 14. And that's when I learned not to be bashful and to learn that this is what theater is. You do what you got to do when you got to do it, you know, and it nowadays though, with unions, there are rules. And if people feel uncomfortable, they feel uncomfortable. You know, we had someone in the Dolly cast who was a Mormon, and no one was allowed to see her change except her dresser. And we all knew that. Everybody knew it. Nobody interrupted her. You know, the person that shared her dressing room knew it. You know, I think I shared a dressing room with her once, but she didn't care. She was like, just come in when you need to. I don't care. You know, but you know, we do have to be, I think our times call for us to be really sensitive to each other. Yet that goes both ways. I'm sensitive to your beliefs and what you require. Now, please be sensitive to my beliefs and what I require, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Is we're sensitive to each other, and we find a happy medium.
Well, I hate to say this, but we're almost at the end of our show.
Okay.
And I love you. And I hate to say
I
goodbye.
love you more.
I hate to let you go, but I am going to say my closing remarks. And Kassira, I'm going to
Yes,
give you the
darling.
last word tonight, as I always do.
Oh, you don't have to.
I know I don't have to, but you wrote the book, and so I want to give you the last word. I look here and I see Sherry Callahan, Natasha Lombardi, Russ Woolley.
Hi, everybody.
You know, Russ Woolley is truly a soulmate of mine. He's one of my best friends in the world. I love this man. We have not seen each other all summer, and we live in the same county.
That's
It's
just
unbelievable.
wrong.
Alan Choi is here. And if I've missed anyone, I'm sorry. It means so much to Kassira and I that you keep coming back each week.
Mhm.
Frances Shea, thank you for being here. And
Hi,
she says,
Frances.
and I want to extend this to everyone else as well. I'm going to put this comment on screen because I think everyone should see this. Happy New Year to all who celebrate, and
Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Happy Rosh Hashanah to
Mhm.
everybody. So tonight, about having the last word. I think it's all about, it's a matter of taking a moment and listening to the other person, listening to what they have to say.
Mhm.
So many people, all that any of us truly want is to be acknowledged. And I feel that so many people, especially nowadays,
Mhm.
feel that they're not being heard. Kassira and I have had conversations where we don't feel sometimes that our friends are even hearing us or whatever.
Mhm.
So it means the world to us that you all are here to celebrate with us tonight, to celebrate each other, to celebrate having the last word, celebrate not having the last word. But if each of you could tell at least 4 people about this show, that would help us out tremendously. Just
And invite them. It's a party.
invite them to join us.
Invite them over for a crotch tail and have a little nibbly thing, and
Yes, that sounds
and
great.
have a let that go party.
And next week, we're going to be talking about letting go of emotional vampires.
No, I call them energetic vampires.
Energetic vampires? Then I need
That's
to
what they're
change
called.
that
They're called
part.
energetic vampires. Yes.
Energetic vampires.
Uh-huh.
So, and we all know who they are. But anyway, none of you are energetic vampires, at least not in my world. You're not. So thank you all for being here tonight. As I say at the end of every show, and I'm going to say again tonight, first of all, I want to remind you that my newsletter comes out at midnight tonight. I hope you're all on board for the Skipper's Guide. And I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list and reach out to the 4th name that pops up and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what that person means to you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge a great artist that we lost this weekend, and that's Rita Gardner. Rita Gardner was in the original Fantastics, among so many other wonderful things. I think the most recent thing that she did on Broadway was The Wedding Singer. And in March of this year, I had the great pleasure of having her on my show. And we remained in touch with each other. And it was great to be able to get to know her a little bit better and to be able to tell her about the wonderful gifts that she brought to me. And so I see today on Facebook the photographs, the outpouring of love and everything. But I think, God, would it have been great, or Buddha, or whatever you want to call it, would it have been great if everyone had seen, if she had seen those postings 4, 5, 6, 7 days ago?
Well, she is, darling.
I know she is, but we need to take the time.
She's hanging out having a martini.
I know that, but my point is that we need to celebrate each other while we're here physically.
Yes.
to do that as well.
Mhm.
So, but as my friend Sean Monager says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper and a diva along. So I'm going to say good night, au revoir, a bientôt, and Kassira has the last word. Kassira, it's all
Aw.
yours. It's all yours.
So really, invite your friends, please, to the show, and please invite them over to have a nibbly thing and a drink and have a party, have a let that go party. I have friends that have asked to come over and be with me when I do this show. I haven't allowed it yet because I don't trust them to keep their mouths shut because they have a lot to say about the subject, but we'll see. Okay, so if you have my book, which is available on Amazon.com, Let That Go, on page 63, under the heading, 5 Reasons We Hold On, one of the reasons is habits and addictions, and I'd like to read from what I wrote in the chapter. The longer we hold on to the habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, and behaving negatively, they become addictions. We also become addicted to being right about them and to the negative stories we tell about them. We also become addicted to being in control. This occurs when we falsely believe we can control another person. The truth is, we can only control ourselves. Therefore, our addiction to control is a waste of time and it also destroys relationships. These negative habits and addictions consume us until they become a way of life and create a negative way of being, which boomerangs more negativity back to us. Righteousness, trying to control others, the stories we tell, and the negativity that is perpetuated sinks us into the quicksand. However, if we can develop these kinds of negative habits and addictions, we can develop other more positive habits, like honoring the free will and desires of others and letting go of the urge to interfere with them. On that note, I say goodbye. I love you. We'll see you next week, and bring some friends.
It's gonna be a brighter day. Don't worry. It's gonna be a brighter day. Yeah, yeah. Don't worry. It's gonna be a brighter day. Don't worry. It's gonna be a brighter day. Don't worry. So don't let nothing get you down. There's goodness all around. Keep the love in your heart and hold your head high. Give all the love and kindness you can to every child, woman, and man. Just know that a change is happening now.